All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Tailwind. I'm joined today by Scott Bliss. He is a Sandler sales trainer in New Jersey for the last 9 years. Is that right?
9 years, yeah, just 9 years in May this
All
month.
right. Anything else I should have mentioned during that intro?
Nope, that's fine.
Cool. Yeah, people can research it, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, so we want to talk about Cookbook today, and then you were mentioning that they're the five C's. Would love to get kind of like the groundwork, the foundation around Cookbook, and then dive into those five C's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure your listeners, already know at Sandler we rely heavily on what we call a cookbook. And if you think of the term cookbook, if you are following a recipe, you have all the ingredients laid out for you and the measurement of exactly how much of what you need. And if you want to make grandma's sauce, and I know there's that whole debate, is it gravy or is it sauce, right? I grew up, it was sauce. But
Yeah.
if you want to follow grandma's recipe for her sauce, if you loved her sauce as a kid, you have the recipe. If you deviate away from her recipe, it's no longer going to taste like grandma's sauce. So that kind of the ingredients list, that cookbook, it's a recipe and you can predict the outcome. If you follow that cookbook, it gives you a bit of a predictable outcome. In sales, we talk about it the same way. A cookbook in sales, I also refer to it as a revenue generating plan. Sales reps are notorious for always complaining about their quota's too high, it's out of reach, it's unattainable, and a lot of times they feel that way. And I'm not discounting those feelings. It may be there may be some truth to it, but most of the time they're thinking about how are they going to get that growth from all the accounts where people know them and love them and they're comfortable in,
Yeah.
right? Then they're right? If they have to continue to maximize growth in accounts where they have the majority of the wallet share already, then that quota looks, unattainable. Many sales reps have territories where there's a bunch of accounts that they've never been to, they know nothing about, they don't have any relationships there, and quite frankly, they don't enjoy calling on them because they don't know anybody, right? So when they get these lofty growth goals that they have to attain, they need to develop a plan on how they're going to do it. And this is where that recipe list, that ingredient list, or in Sandler, our cookbook, this is where it comes in handy and it outlines the daily activities that we have to do every single day. That's going to get us in front of new people. That's going to lead to potentially new meetings, new conversations, and new opportunities entered into the funnel.
Yeah.
Is pretty much the cookbook,
Yeah,
right?
I found as a recently trained Sandler seller that the cookbook is extremely helpful, just keeping me on task and then like being able to focus on, I'm just going to do my cookbook and maybe not every day is going to turn out great, but if I continue to do it every single day, the wins will start to accumulate. And as those start to accumulate, it feels better and better. And
Yeah,
then it's like, yeah, and nothing changes. Or maybe like I try to improve the cookbook based on what I'm seeing out there. But like I just like every single day, just get in there, execute on the cookbook. I've been learning a lot about it being more than just cold calling and cold emailing. Like and having there be like variety to it. And that's been fun
yeah,
to be able to integrate that in and make my cookbook a little bit more robust than just like
yeah.
two things.
Let me ask you, what are, besides cold emails and cold calls, what are some of the things that you've been doing? Um, those other kind of, we call them leading indicators. What are
Yeah.
those leading indicators that you're doing besides cold calling and cold emails to strike up conversations?
Networking has been part of it, and that's pretty basic. And then I don't know if it's too meta, but like doing like these podcasts, getting on, creating, valuable content because we're getting expertise for that people is relevant for, our audience. And then we're able to put it on LinkedIn and that generates, interest like for inbound,
Right.
which has been, interesting. I'll be very honest. I never ever thought I would record a podcast ever and not as a guest, not as a host. And now I'm doing it because it's the cookbook started showing like we had I did one just because like I don't know, people do this for lead gen. Let me give it a shot. I
Yeah.
did one, I got two leads from it, and I was like, oh, this is working. I think I have to do it. And then like I kept doing it and it kept getting us opportunities. And I was like, okay, like totally just an experiment. But then because we took that experiment, we were able to identify oh, this is like another thing that we can do that's part of it.
Well, congratulations to you for expanding your comfort zone because a lot of folks just kind of want to stay comfortable, stay with the things that they know and they know they're good at. You took a leap of faith there and did something different, got you out of your comfort zone, and now the more you do it, the more value you see in it and the more comfortable you get. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool. Right.
definitely.
Worked
Yeah,
out
it's
perfect.
definitely it's been a consistent practice of being in my discomfort zone, but
Yep.
growing because of that opportunity to be like uncomfortable during that. And I'm sure in like a year I'll be like, to look back and I'll be comfortable with these things. It'll be nice.
Yep.
But I've definitely it's been a long road of like a year of just like totally being outside of my comfort zone. But hey, it is what it is. So, we mentioned like the five C's. Comfort
Yep.
doesn't happen to be one of those, is it?
Comfort is not
Okay, I didn't think it
one of the
was, but
five.
I figured
Right?
what's the chance?
Yeah. Yeah. So the five C's, the first one that I always talk about is conviction. Right? So that conviction is you have to genuinely believe that the leading indicators, the things that you decide to do, are going to work.
Hmm.
So as an example, leading indicators are the things that you do that produce results. The results is the lagging indicator, right? So your sales numbers at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, that's a lagging indicator. The leading indicators are the things like podcasts, cold calls, cold emails, other types of LinkedIn and social media work, video emails that you send to people, video messages on LinkedIn, and my favorite and probably the most important and the easiest that so many people forget, referrals and introductions.
Yeah.
There's a difference between referrals and introductions. A referral might be, I've experienced Sandler, I've experienced you as a trainer, it's helped me greatly. I would absolutely be willing to talk to somebody else and let them know how Sandler was great for me. But a lot of times with the networking, we get in front of a lot of people and we want to be able to give and give introductions to those other people that we work with as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even though Austin, you're experienced in Sandler and you've worked with some great trainers over the years, you've never worked with me as a Sandler trainer. So if I were to ask you for a referral, it might put you in a weird state, saying, you know, Scott's a good guy and I love Sandler, but I've never experienced Scott as my trainer. I feel kind of weird giving him
Hmm.
a referral. That's where the word introduction comes in.
Yeah.
An introduction is merely just that. An introduction is if I asked you for an introduction to your friend Bob, who runs a sales team, all I would want you to do is say, "Hey Bob, listen, I know Scott, I know Sandler. I've never been trained by Scott, but he seems like a really great guy, very committed to Sandler, and he asked for an introduction to you. I think it's going to be worth a 15-minute conversation." That's an introduction versus a referral, and they're really warm leads, warm calls,
Yeah.
right?
Nothing
And
better than a warm lead, right? For all parties involved. Like that's the best. It's
yep,
funny, I never really had thought about the difference between a referral and introduction, but I would phrase my emails or the connecting of dots based on referral or introduction.
yep,
And I just kind of always thought of it as like the same thing, but just how much conviction I had within making that dot connect and being like, hey, I for sure can tell you this person's great versus, hey, this person seems great. Every time I talk to them, they're really intelligent. I really don't know what they do. I can't really vouch for them at this point.
yeah,
But it's nice to have that bifurcation in my head now, thinking about what that looks like. And then what you're asking for during the process of being like, hey, I know we've never worked together. I'll take an intro. Or like, hey, we work together. I'll take a referral.
yep.
That's going to be like nice to be able to just have that clearly defined in my head.
I know salespeople that do such a good job with the referrals and introductions that they get in front of enough quality new people weekly to where that's the main thing that they do. And there's really easy ways to do it, and be happy to share that with you. But you know, talking to people that you already know and asking for those introductions. Uh, but anything you do, anything you put together in your cookbook, whether it's a certain, you want to put granularity to it. You don't want to just say, I need to make cold calls, send cold emails, ask for referrals and introductions. You want to put numbers behind it.
Hmm.
You want to put numbers and you want to stick to it. And the conviction piece comes into play where you really believe that ultimately at the end of the day, these are the things that I need to do to be successful. And we're going to have some bad days. If we say, I want to do 15 cold dials a day, there's going to be days where you make 15 cold dials and you leave 15 voicemails. And you're going to feel like, well, even though that doesn't take a whole lot of time, you're going to feel a little bit deflated. But you know, over time, that those are the numbers you have to do. You have to send those emails following up those cold calls that you do. You have to do those video messages. You have to do
Mhm.
the referrals and introductions. Having the conviction that overall, at the end of the day, these are the things that I need to do, that if I do them, no matter what, even when I'm having a bad day, I stick to my cookbook, good things are going to happen overall. So really having that conviction in what you're doing, that belief that it's going to work over a longer period. It might not work in that day or that week, but over the long haul, that's going to work, right?
Yeah.
So having that conviction
So when
behind it.
you're early and you're just starting with your cookbook and it's, the conviction maybe is, trust, but it's not necessarily from your own personal experience. Like, how do you recommend for people to like, because like once you like have done something and it starts to work, the conviction becomes easy. But that early stage seems like it's a little bit more difficult. Like, what would be a recommendation on navigating that as an individual who's building their conviction, I suppose?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one, we have some rules at Sandler. One of them is you can't fail at prospecting,
Hmm.
right? You can only fail the prospect,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can't fail at it. You can only fail if you don't do it, right? So being in the right frame of mind, having your attitude and your mindset, saying that, you know, it's going to work over time. It might not work right away, but I have to build this up and I have to start somewhere and I can tweak it over time, right? If I find things I need to do less of this or more of this or change my talk tracks a little bit, let me find the talk tracks that actually work. Or let me talk to some of my colleagues that have been successful at
Hmm.
it. But being in that right frame of mind, because we are going to have those rough days at it, but we know I'm
Yeah.
sticking to it because it's going to work. Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna work. I just have to stick to it. So, but trying new things, right?
Mhm.
Not being afraid, not being closed-minded, not being afraid, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. My third cold call I ever made on my first day in business.
Hmm.
When I opened up my Sandler business, I went through 2 weeks of intense training and certification. Came back 8 a.m. the next morning. I'm sitting making my cold calls. The third person I called not only hung up on me, but told me to lose their number. That was the
Gotta feel
third
good.
person I called,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, wow, and I said, I must have got him on a bad day, right?
Totally.
That was it. He said, how'd you get this number? This is my cell phone. These are for my friends and family only, to which you are neither. Lose this number. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
right?
But
2 weeks later, I called him back though. I did. I just didn't sit right with me. I called him back. He didn't remember. He didn't say, "You're the guy who I told you to lose." He didn't remember anything. Super
yeah.
nice guy. Super nice guy. We had a small conversation. He didn't have a need for what we do, but I just couldn't let it sit with me where he was just like so rude and arrogant that first day. I got him on a bad day. And
Yeah.
that's the mindset that you have to have. Sometimes people are, you're going to get them on a bad day,
Yeah.
right?
Did you call him back on his cell phone too? Like,
I
did you
did.
not? Yeah, I love that. I gotta find some next time somebody gives me a hard time when I call them, I'm just gonna have to store their number and call them in 2 weeks.
Two
Because like it's
weeks,
so true that like the second they hang up, they've forgotten about you. Like
yeah,
they don't think about you the rest of the day. And then it sits with you on the other end though, where you're like that bad phone call sits with you, and it's like that's so silly. It's not sitting with them anymore. And then you can call them in 2 weeks, and they might just be super happy to talk to you at that point in
yeah.
time.
But
Yeah.
but that also defies my Sandler rule of you cannot get emotionally connected to the results of these cold prospecting. And to
Yeah.
me, I let that emotionally affect me because I called them back 2 weeks later just to prove a point to myself, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have that conviction in the activities that you're going to do, and you can tweak them as you go. But the activities that you do, you have to have that conviction that they're going to work. That's the first C, that conviction.
Yeah.
The second C is commitment. So conviction is the belief, but the commitment is the action.
Hmm.
The action of showing up every day and doing those behaviors even when you don't feel like it,
Yeah.
right? You're feeling down and dejected, or you got a headache, or Aunt Sophie liked my post on Facebook. Let me go hang out on Facebook for a little while. You have to have the commitment to doing the behaviors no matter what. And that's going to show up every day in what you do. Being committed to it, throughout the good times and the bad. The cookbook only works if you follow the recipe.
Hmm.
So you have to have that level of commitment because at the end of the day, we as salespeople cannot control our results. We can't control if people answer the phone. We can't control if they respond to the email. We can't control if they respond to the LinkedIn video, whatever it might be. But we can absolutely control our behaviors
Yeah.
and whether or not we do them or not. So the commitment needs to be there
Well, it
100%.
seems like if you start with commitment, you can build the conviction if you don't have it yet, and then eventually have the conviction because you've had the commitment through the period
Yeah.
of time that it takes to build it. I mean, I
I
know on
think,
a weekly basis, like I have my number that I have to hit for at total touches, and there'll be weeks where like I'll have like a Wednesday where like everything is like on fire and like I'm in tons of meetings and I just don't I literally have no time. And I always sit there and I go, okay, well, tomorrow's going to be double the effort because I'm going to hit my number. And it's just a non-negotiable internally for me is I have to do it every single week. And, I am the founder of my own business. I don't like report to anybody, but it's just
yeah,
like, but I know that if I can hit my number every single week, I fulfilled my commitment. And it always feels great. Like I always kind of, I go wake up and I'm like, I don't know if I want to make twice as many cold calls today, but then being able to then get done with it and be like, I accomplished something. Even if I didn't secure a meeting during that like time period, at least I accomplished my commitment and was able to like, hang my hat on that at the end of the day.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely. It's an accomplishment. And think about it this way. You just said it, right? Today's Monday. Let's say you don't feel like doing your cookbook activities. Tomorrow's Tuesday. You get busy and you only do a couple of them. Wednesday
yeah.
comes, everything's going on. Same with Thursday. There's no way you're going to sit there on Friday and make 80 dials, send 40 emails, ask for 12 referrals, or it's not going to happen, right? And then that's a lost week. So you have to have that commitment, which is the only thing you can control,
Hmm.
right? The behavior, the what you do,
Yeah.
right? This is all about the what, and it's a really simple way to um, put down on paper how you're going to do it. And you said something really interesting. It's not part of the five C's, but uh, you own your own company. You're doing it for yourself, right? So at the end of the day, your motivations change. When I worked for corporate America, I was motivated by pleasure, meaning
Mhm.
got a nice paycheck, got nice, 401k, company car, expense account, all that stuff. And while I was never one to ever live beyond my means, my wife and I and my family, we like to do nice things. We like to go on vacation when we want to. We like to be able to have a savings account and be able, we don't live in a McMansion where, and we have a bunch of credit debt. We live a nice lifestyle, right? It's
Hmm.
motivated by pleasure. Every 2 weeks that paycheck would come in. It was great. When I started my own business 9 years ago, the that motivation of living a pleasurable lifestyle is still there, but it changed just a little bit because now I'm motivated by the fear of not being able to live that pleasurable
Yeah.
lifestyle. So if I don't do my cookbook, that's going to be not, it's not going to enable me to get in front of enough new people that have a good pipeline. The cure to sales cancer is a healthy pipeline, right?
Oh,
So sometimes we as sales reps, we get lazy. Things are going good for a couple months. We stop doing the cookbook. And then, of course, next quarter begins and we look at the pipeline and it's light and we're like, oh man, I get to get back onto my prospecting type stuff, my cookbook. If you stay committed to your cookbook,
hmm.
you will not have those down times, right? And you'll always be able to flourish with at least some good stuff in different stages of the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So that commitment is huge.
Yeah. We have
So,
like a 3 to 6 month sales cycle. So it's like what I'm doing now is going to affect how I feel in 6 months. And I know that
yeah,
if I stop, if things are good now, it's not going to be good in 6 months if I don't do the job. Like,
yeah,
then in 6 months, if let's say I do a great job now, and in 6 months things are great, that's no time to slow down because in the next 6 months it's going to be, well, what did I do during the time when things were flush?
yep,
Um, it's it's very interesting because I'm in my career I've never really been like a salesperson in like I like ran other jobs. I had a very bad sales job early in my career. I wasn't really supported. I didn't know what I was doing, so I don't really count that. But like being somebody who was like a project manager, worked closely with salespeople, I would see these things, but I never experienced them. And it's very different to experience them and be like, oh, I now understand exactly what that means now because I've had that
Yeah.
time with it. So all right, so we got conviction, commitment. What's the
Yep.
third C?
The third C, and arguably the most important C, is consistency,
Hmm.
right? So if we think about it, sporadic effort produces sporadic results. So we want to make sure that the cookbook is specifically designed to create some good consistency, the same behaviors week in and week out. Again,
Hmm.
you can tweak them as you see fit, right? But and you might find that one's working better than the other, so maybe you do more of one, less of another. But regardless of how the pipeline looks, you just said it, right? The stuff you're doing today is 3, 6 months out.
Hmm.
Regardless of how that pipeline looks, you want to continue with the consistency of your behaviors of doing the cookbook. And the biggest problem I see with my clients for years, and I think you'll get the same from any Sandler person you work with, the biggest problem is that salespeople are inconsistent.
Hmm.
They prospect hard when the pipeline is kind of empty and light, but they stop when it starts to fill up, right? So that's going to create that bit of inconsistency. And once that happens, they kind of wonder why they're on a roller coaster and their results, kind of go like that. It's all because I don't know if it's necessarily part of their conviction or commitment, more so of their consistency in doing the things that they know are going to lead to the right things.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I feel like there's a theme building where it's like I see how these all overlap, but it's like almost putting up like an impenetrable wall to be like, there's no sneaking around how you're gonna execute this stuff. It's
Yeah,
like I have to have conviction, but commitment, and like I see how those things are slightly different. And then now we have consistency, and it's like, all right, I can see how commitment and conviction also now consistency is walling off another excuse or an escape route from it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what's the next C?
The next C, this is the hardest one for salespeople. Consequences. And when I say the word consequences to you, where does your mindset immediately go?
Uh, I've actually thought a lot about consequences and what it means because sometimes consequences are great and sometimes they're bad. And
Yeah,
there's that negative connotation of consequence just means a negative thing, but it's really just a result of action. But I
yeah.
think, a lot of people I think would go to something bad. I'm being punished. That's my consequence.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what most people think, but consequences are both positive and negative, right? So every behavior that we do does have a consequence, and the cookbook makes them visible and predictable,
Hmm.
right? So a positive consequence is if we hit our cookbook numbers, sales consistently kind of flow. The pipeline gets some good stuff in it. You'll start seeing those fuller pipelines, maybe a little bit more predictable income, less stress, greater confidence. Those are all aspects of positive consequences.
Hmm.
You even have a good solid. This is going to sound silly, right? But you reward yourself. You have a good couple of months of really adhering to your cookbook. Go reward yourself, right? You get the
Hmm.
pipeline starting to build up, but go get that bottle of wine that you've been holding off on. Go to that nice meal. Take your wife out or your husband out or your significant other out for that nice meal. Celebrate. Give yourself a pat on the back, right? And just keep rewarding yourself for those, the positive consequences that you should have from completing
Yeah.
your cookbook, right? On the reverse side, though, negative consequences kind of happen when you skip your cookbook activities more than you actually make them. We start getting a little negative because results don't show up immediately. Some, like you said, sometimes they show up 60, 90, 120 days later,
Yeah.
right? For an empty pipeline. So that lag is kind of dangerous because it tricks people into thinking that they can skip 1 week and it won't matter.
Hmm.
Right. So, we kind of want to make sure that we understand both sides of the consequences because that's what's going to really create the real urgency around your daily behaviors, right? It's not just about reward, but it's also about avoiding the pain of future scarcity,
Yeah.
right? So,
Do you like, do you, is it, do you have like a practice of how you like directly tie consequence to the cookbook of like be sitting down like once a month and being like, hey, this activity led to these meetings and like tying them together directly? Or okay,
yeah,
how would
yeah.
you recommend like if somebody puts that into practice?
Start small. We eat elephants one bite at a time, right? Start
Mhm.
small and start looking at it weekly. If you don't have a cookbook and you're not doing a cookbook today and you're just kind of willy-nilly, put one together and then at the end of each week, sit down there and kind of grade yourself on it, right? Say, what did I do?
I like that.
Why didn't I do what I needed to do? What do I need to change, right? Like I said, your cookbook, for the most part, is kind of like a breathing document. You can tweak it. If one activity is working better than another, do a little bit more of it. But you
Mhm.
should sit there. You should get into the habit of it. Your cookbook should be visible. It should be on your desk, on your computer, on your phone, something that you look at every day. I used to laugh. I still chuckle a little bit, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. But when I go to the gym, I'll always see those one or two people that are sitting there, right, in their workout with a notebook, and they're
Mhm.
writing things down and they're checking things off, and I kind of chuckle. But then you kind of look at those people, and they're the ones that are all ripped and looking good and doing the exercises the
Yep.
right way and keeping track of it. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, you know what? Maybe I should be tracking what I'm doing a little bit better, a little bit more often in the gym, right? So,
Yeah.
um, you wanna be able to reward yourself. The negative consequences to not doing your cookbook, you're not going to have the pipeline where you need it to be. If you are an employee and you have a boss, some other negative consequences are you're going to feel a lot of pressure and stress from up above saying you're not hitting your numbers, you're pulling the rest of the team down. What's going on? Why are you just staying in accounts where you know people? You need to go out there and meet other people. I remember years ago before my Sandler business, I was in the pharma space and I was working with one of my reps at a pharma account, and we sold a lot of R&D type chemicals. And I was working with them. We'd walk into like three labs in a row. Then we'd skip four labs. Then we'd walk into another two. Then we'd skip five. And I'd be like, "Hey, Brian, what's going on? Why are we not going into these labs?" "Oh, I don't know anybody in there." Right? "I'm
Yeah.
just going talking to people that order stuff from us." I'm like, "Well, don't you think there's something wrong with that?" Right? So it's kind of like, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to, the cookbook's going to help you avoid uncomfortable situations with your boss because your behaviors, the accomplishment of your cookbook is the only thing within your control that you can guarantee gets done the right
Yeah.
way.
I like this focus on the positive side of it too. Like it's for me, especially like right now, a newer business, like we're still trying to establish ourselves. So like very much focused on the negative consequences rather than focusing enough on the positive consequences. And I
Right.
love this idea of just like every Friday, like my co-founder and I do a debrief. We talk about the week. I think we just need to sit down and look at the cookbook, talk about the consequences of what happened during that week. And that's a new adopted practice that we'll have to definitely do like after having this conversation. We're a little over
Absolutely.
the time, but I do want to hear the fifth C. Is that all right?
Fifth C. Yeah, let's
Cool.
do the fifth C. The fifth C is clarity. Right? You cannot execute what you don't clearly understand. So the cookbook must be specific, not make some calls, but make 20 prospecting calls, right? By noon. Do 18 emails. You really want that clarity because what clarity provides you is it removes the ambiguity and the excuses.
Mhm.
So when the expectations are crystal clear, your personal accountability becomes much more straightforward and fair. So you have to have the clarity, but also the clarity kind of works both ways, right? The salesperson needs clarity on what to do, and the manager needs clarity on where they're going to coach their salespeople, right? If they're working with, a sales manager that needs, right? So if I had a sales manager, or your partner can be your accountability partner, your business partner,
Yeah.
hey, right, Austin, did you do what you said you were going to do, right? You hold each other kind of accountable because without clarity, conviction, commitment, and consistency has nothing to attach to,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of all starts with the clarity there, and kind of like in closing of this, the five C's are not independent, right? From that aspect, they build on each other. So the clarity tells you what to do, the conviction makes you believe it's worth doing, the commitment makes you do it, and the consistency makes you do it repeatedly,
Yeah.
right? And of course, the consequence is you reward yourself or you penalize yourself. So they all kind of work independently of one another.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. It's such a good way to like work on the mindset around cookbook to have these five C's and then just like to think through them and have them consistently like does are the five C's applied and actually active in my cookbook, or do I just have a cookbook that is maybe spineless or like doesn't have like any teeth to it? And this is
Yep,
like a great way to like give it a backbone, make it something that's going to be strong, and not just like I have my my cookbook, I have my piece of paper with all everything. Now here's how I make it like powerful by using the five
yep.
C's. That's super cool.
Don't make it a check the box activity because then it's
Yeah.
you don't have the commitment there.
It can
So
feel like it sometimes. Like it can
yep,
feel like it's checking the box, and then like you're losing track of what the five C's are reminding you is like what what this really is underneath it, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a box that you have the conviction in that's really going to help you get to the place where you want to be. So
yeah.
that's the mindset you want to have.
Oh, building and using a cookbook has changed my business. That there's no it's undeniable. We would not be where we are if I didn't have one, if we didn't use one every week. Like we are reaping the benefits of having that as a framework to use. And now having
Awesome.
the five C's will help us make it even more powerful. I believe it.
Perfect. Very
Cool.
good.
Well, Scott, I appreciate it. Thank you for staying a little bit longer. This is great. I'm really excited to start applying this to my own cookbook and getting that into action.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for having me today.